Conor Benn, the son of the famous Nigel Benn, wins his second professional fight with a 4-round points decision over Luke Keleher. Now, I've seen a lot of criticism of Conor Benn's performance in this fight all over the internet. People are saying that he can't punch correctly, his technique is horrible, he's got no defense, etc., etc., etc. Here's what you have to bear in mind. Conor Benn only had about 20 amateur fights. So he's very inexperienced. Also the fact that Conor Benn, and you can see this in him, if you're somebody that has any idea about how to read body language and somebody's demeanor, it's very, very apparent looking at Conor Benn and the way he talks that he has inherited his dad's character to a large extent. And when I talk about his dad's character, I'm talking about somebody who is a very instinctive, emotional kind of person. Not really an analytical person. Nigel Benn was never like that. He was always somebody that thrived on emotion and instinct and fought on those things. Conor Benn is clearly the same. You can tell that by his demeanor. You can just look in his eyes and see it. He goes on his instincts and not by his brain. And when you combine that with a lack of experience and the excitement that a young guy like that, a young inexperienced, instinctive kind of guy like that, impulsive, that's the word I'm looking for. He's very impulsive. A young, impulsive, excitable, inexperienced fighter on a big stage like that, he's never going to be able to hold his technique together, particularly not when his opponent, like Keleher did, comes out and starts trying to have a war with him early. He's going to go into red mist mode and let it all hang out. That's what's going to happen. I've seen Conor Benn, and I'm sure many of you have as well, in many sparring sessions with various different professionals on YouTube. And his technique looks far better in those sparring sessions than it looked against Luke Keleher last night. And that is something that you often see with inexperienced fighters, particularly when you're dealing with amateurs. They'll be boxing very well in the gym, holding their technique together. But when you put them in a fight, the nerves kick in, the excitement kicks in, the adrenaline kicks in, and all of that great technique which they showed in the gym goes out the window, and all of a sudden they're slapping and cuffing with shots. They're getting overexcited. They're rushing their punches. This is what happens a lot of the time with inexperienced fighters. So I wouldn't get too alarmed about what Conor Benn is doing at the moment. He's very, very young. He's very inexperienced. He's very impulsive and emotional. Give him time. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, he's got plenty of time, so give him time. Let's not be too overly critical and harsh at this particular juncture. Yeah, he's going to learn. So those are my thoughts on it. And again, people are also saying he can't punch and this, that, and the other. Again, a lot of that comes down to technique and being overexcited. If you're not punching correctly, you're not going to be hitting with maximum force. I've seen him punch very hard in the gym, in those sparring sessions, and punch very correctly. If he can do it in the gym, he should be able to do it in the ring. He just needs more experience and to gain a calmer head as he gets older, and then he'll be able to bring that punching power to his professional fights. So those are my thoughts on Conor Benn. He's a work in progress. I do think he has a lot of natural talent. I really do. And a lot of people are criticizing him, saying he's trying to be too much like his dad. We're all like our dads. Whether we like it or not, we all take a certain amount from our dads, whether it's on a conscious level, a subconscious level, or on a genetic level. You're going to take some of the same mannerisms as your dad. Like, for example, Conor Benn throws punches. Even his stance looks very much like his dad's, because the way his body is configured is very similar to his dad. So naturally, he's going to be standing in the same kind of way, throwing very similar type of punches, etc., etc. A lot of it, in terms of, being similar to his dad, he can't help. And I've mentioned this before, in terms of the way Conor Benn's body is configured, the proportion of his limbs to his torso. He's much more similar to his dad's physique in terms of, as I say, limb proportion in proportion to torso. He's much more similar to his dad in that sense than Chris Eubank Jr. is to his dad. Chris Eubank Jr. noticeably has shorter limbs than his dad. Much shorter. His shoulders are not as wide, they're narrower. And that's one of the reasons why his punches are a lot more tight than his dad's punches were. And when I say tight, I mean a lot more neat. And he's a better combination puncher than Eubank Sr. was. But Eubank Sr., with his longer arms, was able to keep opponents at bay and avoid getting hit a bit more successfully than Eubank Jr. can. And also his dad, with those broader shoulders and slightly, more muscular physique and what have you, he had better punching power, more one-punch knockout power than Eubank Jr. has. So yeah, there's quite a big difference if you look at them in terms of their physique between Eubank Sr. and Jr., in terms of the way their bodies are configured. Now, obviously, Conor Benn is a lot smaller than his dad in terms of weight, but just the shape of his physique and everything and the way he moves is very similar to Nigel. Very, very similar. So, again, I think people are being a little bit harsh and going a little bit overboard when they're saying, stop trying to be like your dad. He's going to be like his dad to a certain extent. We all are. If you look at Floyd Mayweather Jr., the way he moves is very much like his dad and his uncle. And a lot of that is genetic. A lot of it, yeah, does come from the fact that they taught him. But it's also a lot of it genetic, that he's going to move in a certain way because his body is configured very similar to his dad and his uncle. Yeah? So let's not get overboard. The problem for Conor Benn here, in my view, is not necessarily that he's trying to be too much like his dad. Because if you see Nigel Benn, if you saw all of his fights, Nigel Benn wasn't always a seek and destroy kind of fighter. There were plenty of fights where Nigel Benn took a step back and boxed a little bit, tried to be a bit clever, a bit slick. Have a look at the sparring footage of Nigel Benn against Roberto Duran. And you'll see Nigel Benn flashing a beautiful jab, combination punching, lateral movement, and lighting Roberto Duran up in that sparring session. And he did that in a fair number of his fights, particularly after he lost to Michael Watson and Chris Eubank the first time. So he had versatility, Nigel Benn, when he decided to use it for certain fights. Conor Benn also has that same type of versatility, and you'll see him using that as well. I've seen him using it in sparring, and I'm sure you're going to see him use it in some professional fights. As I keep saying ad nauseum, let's just give him time. He's just a kid. He's very inexperienced. Yeah? So, yeah, those are my thoughts, people. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.